Good evening, everybody. My name is E.R. Anderson. I'm the executive director of Charis Circle. Charis Circle is the nonprofit programming arm of Charis Books, and Charis Books is the South's oldest independent feminist bookstore. We're delighted to be here tonight celebrating an event that these folks are calling Wrestling with Bodies, which is an intriguing title. And I can tell by how many of you are with us tonight that you are excited to dig into this with all of us. So I'm going to get right into introducing our panelists. First, we have Megan Milks, who is the author of Margaret and the Mystery of the Missing Body, as well as And Remember the Internet, Volume 2, Tori Amos Bootleg Webring with Marisa Crawford. They are the co-editor of We Are the Babysitters Club, Essays and Artwork from Grown-Up Readers. They also have a new book coming out next month, so we're taking pre-orders for that. They are born in Virginia and they currently live in Brooklyn. So I think the book we're mostly talking about tonight is Margaret and the Mystery of the Missing Body. So welcome, Megan. We're really excited that you are here.
Thank you.
We're joined as well by Venita Blackburn. Works by Venita have appeared or are forthcoming in The New Yorker, Harper's, Plowshares, McSweeney's, The Paris Review, and others. She received the Prairie Schooner Book Prize in Fiction for her collected stories, Black Jesus and Other Superheroes, in 2017. She is the founder of the literary nonprofit Live Right, or maybe Live Right. I'm not sure, actually. Live Right. Okay. And you can find that at liverightworkshop.com, which provides free creative writing workshops for communities of color. Blackburn's second collection of stories, How to Wrestle a Girl, is the book that we are celebrating here tonight. She is an assistant professor of creative writing at California State University in Fresno. So welcome to you. And finally, we are joined by award-winning novelist Casey Plett. She returned with us tonight to celebrate. So she is the author of Little Fish, A Dream of a Woman, is the book we are here to celebrate tonight. It is a poignant suite of stories that center transgender women. Plett's 2018 novel, Little Fish, won a Lambda Literary Award, the Firecracker Award for Fiction, and the Amazon First Novel Award. Her latest work is her first book of short stories since her seminal 2014 collection, A Safe Girl to Love. Centering trans women that are seeking stable adult lives, A Dream of a Woman finds quiet truths in prairie high-rises and New York warehouses, in freezing Canadian winters and drizzly Oregon days. So we are excited to have you here. And also, we should say that Casey is the co-editor of Meanwhile Elsewhere, Science Fiction and Fantasy from Transgender Writers, which won the ALA Stonewall Barbara Giddings Literature Award, and we will be working with her to get that back into our customers' hands because we know that that is a very popular book and folks have been asking for it. So we connected earlier today and we will be making sure that is available to y'all. So yeah, so happy to have y'all here, and I want to let folks know that you can ask questions. So if you click this Ask a Question button at the bottom sort of right center of your screen, you may put a question there at any time. You also, if you're on a phone or something and it's hard to put a question there, you can put it in the chat and I'll move it over. So let's get right into it. I think I'm turning it over to Megan. Thank you all so much.
Okay. Thank you, ER. Thank you, Charis, for hosting us. And I'll send a personal thank you to Feminist Press, my publisher, and my agent, Rach Crawford. And thanks, of course, to Venita and Casey for being game to join me for this event. I'm such a huge fan and admirer of you both. And it's so great to be here with you. So I am going to, we are, and thank you to everyone who is here with us. Please keep the chat lively. We love a friendly chat, and we would love to see you all post throughout the event. And yeah, as ER said, we will be doing an audience Q&A at the end. So, if you have questions, please pose them for us. So we'll each read a bit from our books, and then we'll turn to a Q&A among ourselves, and then we'll take questions from you all. Okay, and I'm starting us off. I will be reading from, okay, hi. I'm going to read a little bit from, I'll just read the first page and a half, and then I'll turn to a later section that is more like body, body, body. So this is the first page of the book. Adolescence. We all go through it, some of us again and again. It's a transitional space, a waiting room, this long, shapeless stretch between youth and adulthood, naivety and knowledge. It's the private heat within which our goop becomes what it wants to become. It's the mystery of the banana, the magic converting its peel from pale green to a brash and confident yellow. It's the burrow of dirt into which the earthworm worms to improve itself in secret. It's the passage from this into that, from here to there, to some kind of passing maturity. Adolescence is the hallway, the between, the almost, the not there yet. Margaret is spending hers driving. Every morning she guides her LeSabre down the long pebbled driveway of her home, then left past the massive clay edifice that is Shady Bluff's namesake, or so she has supposed since childhood. It is, rather, a pile of dull dirt. Another left and another, out through the snaking back roads of South Chesterfield, Virginia, past the flicker of tobacco fields and forest, 2 winding rights and a hard left to go north, up a frightful hill and all the way down to its bottom, to park in the muddy overflow lot allocated to lowly juniors like her. Then again, hours later, from that same parking lot to the way out field where her science group counts insects in weekly grids, and back to school to drop off Davina and Richie, or once a week heading north on the parkway and through the tolls to the difficult one-way streets of Richmond for symphonic band. And always back to Shady Bluff. Or not yet. More and more she drives past the entrance and keeps driving. If it is always inevitable, she might as well delay getting home. From here to there and home, always home to Shady Bluff, where she has lived for most of her life and keeps living, while around her the neighborhood changes, grows, develops. There's a new, uglier entrance sign now and a major expansion just down the street from her house. What with a steady stream of trucks and plows and porta potties, not to mention prospective buyers, cruising slowly, too slowly, only to stop in the middle of the pavement, Margaret has been feeling like a castaway prop in someone else's future. The disconnect unsettles her. Not long ago, she would have been thrilled at the prospect of a new wing, imagining what the construction might dig up, time capsules and ghosts, if they were lucky, some skeletal remains. Then would come new homes, which would mean new clients, new cases, which would mean more Girls Can Solve Anything business. But Girls Can Solve Anything is dead. That's the problem. She won't think about that now. She only thinks about that on Tuesdays between 5:30 and 6:30 p.m. So Girls Can Solve Anything is this middle school mystery club that she is mourning. She's in high school in this opening section. And then the book kind of moves back and forth between these middle school mysteries, Girls Can Solve Anything mysteries, and Margaret in high school. Then she ends up in Briarwood Treatment Center. She's developed an eating disorder. And the section I'm going to read now is sort of like what I think about as like Escape from Briarwood. It's this like fantasy section where portals open up and Margaret and 2 of the other residents of Briarwood enter this giant body world. So I'll read the transition from Briarwood into this body world. So there has been a ghost. It's hard to explain, but there's been a ghost who has collapsed, and where the ghost has collapsed, there's a giant, not a giant, but a mid-sized mouth etched into the floor. So this is what they're looking at now. You guys, Evie points. You see what she sees. A spurt of cloudy air coming from the mouth etching. And you hear it. A hiss like a release of gas, first faint, then intense, then intensifying like a rush of compressed steam. The hiss dissipates as the room fills with the noxious odor of centuries of concentrated morning breath. You bring your collar over your nose to avoid breathing it in. What is that? Like a groundhog in a game of whack-a-mole, a quivering purple-pink lump is bobbing out of the wooden floor. Ian yelps and scrambles over to the sofa, bringing his legs and feet off the rug. What on God's earth? Evie says. Should we see what it is? When neither you nor Ian moves, she gets up and creeps deliberately toward it, lunging to keep her weight close to the ground. Evie, don't, you whisper. She keeps creeping. You make yourself leave the sofa and follow close behind her, fear rising. Evie stops a short distance from the mouth. Looks like a tongue, she says, peering down at it. I think it's stuck. It can't get us. You see what she means. The wooden panel between the upper and lower teeth has disappeared, and the pink slab is sliding around in the space it has left, repeatedly bumping up against the teeth and retracting. From behind the teeth and tongue, a groan of displeasure. I think it wants out, says Evie. Let's see if we can help it. Okay, so then they open up the mouth. On the count of 3, you pull. The jaws separate and the 3 of you clamber away, watching as the tongue elongates into the air thickly, moist and quivering, stretching, teetering first forward, then backward before falling and crashing down near Evie with a thwack and a soft, sour-smelling exhale. After a moment of stillness, Evie pokes the tongue with one foot. It's silent and seems to be at rest. You hear strange squelching sounds from below and peer into the wide, dark tunnel of the throat. A rippled chute leads downward at an angle. Stepping up behind you, Ian stares down at the chute. We're really doing this? You are. You, Margaret, the tallest, take the rear position, straddling Ian, who straddles Evie in the front. As a unit, you balance on the edge of the tunnel, and 1, 2, 3, you push off. You slide down, at a brisk but not death-defying pace. The mouth closes above you with a clang. Your shrieks relax into laughter. It's too dim to see much, but you hear all kinds of interesting noises. Drips and trickles, sizzles and booms. Then the tunnel ends. Releasing your grip on Ian, you sail through space, screaming, to land in a pile of loose chunks. Gross. You chuckle nervously and push yourself up. Evie reaches over to peel off the splotches of muck plastered to your forehead. You wipe your face on your sleeve and behold your surroundings. You've dropped down into a glistening, pinkly lit chamber. Around you, the floor slopes up. When you step onto it, it pushes back like a trampoline, rubbery, springy with give. The walls stretch high above you to form the opening through which you arrived. Along the ceiling, globules dangle, producing a viscous, drippy ooze. The walls are wet and irregularly ridged, a darker pink than the mouth, rippled through with crimson, brown, electric blue, and waxy yellow streaks. Peripheral movement drags your attention. Along the walls, an array of holes open and close. Not holes, mouths. A cacophony of them, all different shapes and sizes, slurping, salivating, chomping, murmuring, licking their lips, sighing. You turn slowly, taking it in. It's breathtaking. It's beautiful. It's wretched. It's like stepping inside oneself, and if one's insides were disassembled and reconfigured by a mad scientist. Or an artist. It's art. It's a body. A giant mutant body. And you're stuck inside it. Okay, I'll stop there. Venita is next. Thank you.
Right? Gotta the silence of the digital world.
Mm-hmm.
But that was awesome, Megan. Nice. All that imagery. And I think it's an interesting contrast to how I write about the body. Like it's sort of, I do these sort of far away kind of abstract sort of, I don't know, deity kind of perspectives of things. And then you're like, go right in there, go into the cells, go into the goop. That's cool. But I'm going to read from my new collection, How to Wrestle a Girl. And it's a collection of stories, and it's broken up in sort of a weird way. So there's half of them are sort of interconnected, same character, same world, and the other half, they're all sort of thematically linked, but different worlds, different characters, and a lot of flash fiction is in here. So really super short stories, and then sort of traditional stories, and then all kind of things are happening, different forms. But I can, because I'm a flash fiction writer, I have a story that will fit into any time slot, no matter what people tell me. So it's pretty easy to be like, oh, you got 5 minutes? Okay, got this one. 8 minutes? Got this one. So I'm not going to read the one I planned to because it was too short. So I have a full 8-ish minutes. I'm going to read this one. It's called Smoothies. And like I said, it does that sort of kind of far away thing, but take it as you will. All right, so it's just a couple pages, 2 or 3 more, 3, 4. Smoothies. The first time a guy said I look like a man was at the Jamba Juice stand in the mall. He was still a boy, probably my age and sticky from adolescence. You look like a man. He said it as if he had the right to say anything to me, as if it was important for his survival, an echo of his ancestors who were my ancestors, long and black and muscled, though we were 2 strangers holding smoothies. His phone was 3 generations older than mine. I had superior sneakers, a designer sweatshirt, better moisturizer, and even my drink held more protein and complexity, but he wielded his right to possess them all in one note of disgust. I took a sip as a man in a suit too tall to have a head in my sightline jingled the change in his pocket. You look like a man. It took a few seconds before I knew it wasn't a compliment, that it was a lesson, an exchange, that he was learning too how to be a man by not being a girl. In Sunday school, we were learning about the first man and first woman, how Adam must have been closer to God because God made him first, and pretty much all the problems of all time thereafter came about because of Eve and a snack. I chewed a hunk of ice that hadn't broken down properly, and a woman hit the headless suited man in the heel with her stroller. The boy could have said the words like he'd say hello, or nice to meet you, or where did you get that watch, or what a wonderful day it is to be upright and breathing here together. But he said them in a different way, the way we tell strangers your shoes are untied or you have toilet paper on your ass. He saw himself in me and felt ashamed. He saw himself in me and felt proud, but pride wasn't supposed to live inside of women, so he had to walk it back and cut its throat till the blood ringed around my neck. You look like a man. Years later, it would become you eat like a man, you walk like a man, you sound like a man. My chromosomes had not yet been tested. My birth certificate says female, live birth, 7 pounds and 3 ounces. I didn't think I wanted to be loved by boys until that boy told me it was not possible. I don't remember what I looked like then, a few years ago, but I remember him, his dirty chucks, ashy corners of his mouth and dry scalp. Back then, I stared deeply at people the way children do, still curious. He existed. I didn't expect him to look back, though. Children are rarely seen, but I wasn't a child anymore and hadn't fully realized that. Now strangers could assert their judgments on my whole body, my whole story, without permission. You look like a man. I was 3 sips into the smoothie before it hit. To be a woman seemed a terrible thing to have happened, and it happened at 3:54 on a Friday when I was 14 to the sound of a blender jolted to life. Women have to be small, give birth, wear makeup. I could see all the women, the court reporters, the accountants, psychics and secretaries, biologists and senators, important but nameless, with inconvenient hairstyles and morning routines. Men got to invent women over and over, one generation after another, by the grace of God. The woman's stroller spit out a toy from what must have been a child tucked inside. The mother cooed, then retrieved the toy and fed it back to the stroller. The mall was not a place to fall apart. It happened anyway. When I get hurt, usually the universe opens up a little, like a bullet through a watermelon. Things separate and scatter. It feels like this is how we really are all the time, and everything else is just pretend. We pretend to have legs and skin and penises and milk ducts. We pretend some skin looks one way while other skin is different. We pretend to have green eyes and brown eyes and yellow teeth and gray teeth, and the sky is blue to us in the day and black at night. We pretend lots of things that are only sort of true when we are the sky and time and memory and the center of the earth and destiny and gods and gravity and salted oceans and children of the gods who ate their mothers and birthed the constellations and nebulas, and death are a myth because everything goes into itself to begin again. There was fear and doubt on the boy's face when I finally turned away. The condemnation dissolved. I, a girl, would grow to be a better man than he and still be a woman. The sugar pooled like acid on my tongue when the feeling passed. All the other customers departed, and it was just us under the fluorescent lights together again. There seemed nothing left to prove, and a whole new point was born between us that we had not yet named. Okay, that's it for smoothies. All right, you've got Casey next. Take it away.
Thank you, Venita. That was great. Megan, that you were reading was amazing as well. Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Oh, this is Lettuce, by the way. Say hello to Lettuce, everyone. Lettuce is not my cat, but I'm at my friends Owen and Lucas's right now. This is their adorable cat, Lettuce. Oh, Lisa's here! Lisa and Erin. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Erin. All right, I'm going to read a portion from a story of my new book, A Dream of a Woman. This story is called Enough Trouble. And the main thing that you need to know about the story is that it is about two women, Gemma and Ava, and they are at Ava's place in a small town of 8,000 people. They are in an apartment that is oddly tall for such a town. It's very high. It's very high up on the 34th floor. Why is there a 34 floor apartment building in a town of 8,000 people? Great question. Anyway, so Gemma and Ava are romantically intertwined, and Gemma is crashing with Ava for a bit. This is the first night together. Okay, let's see here. Everyone, can everyone hear me okay? Just want to check in about that. Amazing. Thank you, chat friends. Okay, wonderful. Ava shrugs. She says, generous is for people with choices. Gemma says, don't kid yourself, you got choices. Ava laughs. Sure. She pours the rest of the wine into Gemma's glass and says, well, look, I don't know what you're doing next, and you don't need to tell me what's up with you, but you can stay here as long as you need, hey? Gemma says, thank you. I appreciate that. I do. Of course, Ava says placidly. Gemma gestures to the music that's playing. This reminds me of church singing, she said. This town is heavy with Mennonites, this place where Gemma grew up. And Mennonites make up the family that Gemma comes from. She says, it's not the same, but a little. Ava puts her head on Gemma's shoulder and their legs touch. The polyurethane of Ava's skirt is cool on Gemma's thigh. Ava traces a finger around the top of Gemma's hand and she says, I loved hearing you sing. Months ago, when they had met that spring, it was at a party on Balmoral. Gemma had been texting a friend and then looked up to see Ava sitting next to her. They began talking and their hands and legs moved closer, the way they do when the bodies of women pull to each other without asking permission. They kissed quickly and inevitably. It was all so immediately obvious. They walked to Gemma's in the cool air and made love on her mattress, Gemma's palm on Ava's throat, Ava's body a ghostly crosshatch below her, serrated by streetlight through the blinds. They woke at 10 the next day to an April prairie snow, trudged over to the Nook in pajamas for breakfast, back to Gemma's to spoon and fuck in front of the TV. And late in the evening, Gemma had mentioned that offhand she had grown up in choirs, and Ava asked if she could hear her sing. Gemma got bashful. I can't do that, she said. Ava teased her. Come on, for me? And Gemma relented and sang That Lonesome Road. She'd sung it in high school choir, she said, but she had really learned to sing in church. Not just at the church she had attended with her dad, but also with her Oma, who would play an upright piano at her house in Mitchell, over around Steinbach area. She played through hymns on Sunday before services, and she taught Gemma how to sing. Ava said, you have a beautiful voice, once Gemma had finished. Thanks, I miss it now, Gemma had said quietly. That part of my life's gone now. And Ava said, I understand. Gemma pulled up YouTube then. This is my favorite version of that song, she said. It's a university choir, Wichita State. It's done a lot, like it gets sung a lot, but it's always like too clean, like it's too calm, like it's too sanitized, like it's too joyous. It gets sung like a lullaby. It's not a lullaby. Gemma had gotten emotional suddenly, saying that. The next morning, Ava had to book it out early to make it back home for work. That's when Gemma learned she lived out there. What? You live out there? You're fucking kidding me, she hooted. That's where I grew up. That is my hometown. That is some janky shit. And Ava blushed and put on her clothes. And as Gemma's front door, they kissed and kissed. Then Ava's face lit like a flame and she said, let's do this again sometime. And then she left. And Gemma sat on the couch and the brain pea deluge of dopamine drained away. And regular life stepped back in front of her, a faceless shape in the doorway. Hey, Lettuce. You want to come hang out? Come on. You're nice, Gemma says now. Thank you. Gemma puts her arm around the taller girl's body. Ava had ravaging acne as a teenager, and her back and shoulders are moon-gnarled with scars. There's something gorgeous and unfragile to how it makes Ava look, but Gemma keeps that thought to herself. She says, "You're so warm." Ava says, "I'm always warm. I hate the heat." "Oh no," Gemma clucks. "Don't tell me you thought it was hot today." Ava says, "I haven't been outside. My hands are always cold, though." Ava puts a palm on Gemma's cheek, and she flinches. "See? Damn. Bodies." Shit, speaking of bodies, Gemma picks up her phone. "I got blood work done the other day. I haven't had that in a dog's age." Says Ava. "I have it every 6 months, but there's no good reason." Ava and Gemma are transsexuals. That is relevant information. Gemma says, "Well, apparently I'm every 6 years, so I guess let's see who lives longer." Ava says, "I'm serious, unless you have a condition to watch for. Do you?" "No." "Right," says Ava. "It's only so they can, like, I don't know, run up bills and feel like they have control when they don't have any more fucking clue what hormones do than we do. Hey?" Gemma lowers her phone, bemused all of a sudden. She says, "Well, color me fooled. Aren't you the angry little radical tran?" Ava says, "I'm getting my Badal tattoo tomorrow." "You find out if you're dying yet?" Gemma puts her phone away. She says, "The app hasn't updated. My blood's on an app. The future's fucked up." Ava shifts her legs, and the sound of her skirt puts electricity in Gemma's clit. "Do you have anything else?" Gemma nods to the empty bottle. "Tequila," Ava says earnestly. "You're welcome to it." "Thanks," Gemma says. Oh, Gemma is an alcoholic. That is also relevant information. She says, "I kind of want beer, though." She says this almost to herself. There's a vendor at Trav's. And Gemma realizes as this happens, "I think I'm comfortable with you," she thinks. This easy feeling she has right now. It's exactly how Gemma remembered. She doesn't have to trust it to enjoy it. She realizes that in these last 3 months since her and Ava had met, she has carried this feeling, a memory of this feeling around with her, like a necklace beneath her skin. "I'm so comfortable with you." Ava holds out her key fob. She says, "I'd have a beer. You mind going alone?" Gemma slings up her bag. Gemma crosses South Railway in the misty rain, up and over the tracks. The Trav's building is right out of an Old West cartoon. Like inside might be men in vests and handlebar mustaches. Gemma picks up king cans from a guy in a Timberwolves hat. When she comes out, the rain has stopped. Most of her money is now gone. She goes west down the alley, away from Ava's building. In the lightless alcove of the post office entrance, she sits and drains one of the king cans, hidden behind the wheelchair ramp. Gemma leans her head against the brick as restful calm wraps around her. She emerges from the alley by the old library and the traffic light on 8th Street. She's slick with humidity under her dress in the night. The light changes, but no cars go through. Back at Ava's, they pop the beers and talk about a girl out east they both know. Then Gemma says, "Come here," and there's a flurry of clothes, and Ava's mouth becomes full with Gemma's tits, and Ava wraps her legs around Gemma's back, and Gemma can feel Ava's flesh fold into itself, condense, seek every opportunity to not be exposed to air. What Gemma feels is Ava feeling her own body. They fuck against a window, Ava's skirt hastily flipped up, sweat netting the hair on her scarred back. I'm going to stop there, and you can just read the book if you want to know what happens next.
That is really not fair.
Thank you, Venita. Thank you. I make no apologies, Megan.
Wow. I love that scene. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Applause. To you both. Okay, so the title of this event, as everyone knows, is Wrestling with Bodies. So I thought we could just open up a conversation about just like some of the ways in which we've variously wrestled with bodies in our fiction. And I guess like I'm also interested in like the particular challenges that come up for you both in doing so. So Venita, I mean, the word wrestling is drawn from your book. So I wonder if we can start with you. I know you actually have some literal wrestling in the book, and maybe you can talk about that, but also other ways that wrestling with bodies shows up for you.
Okay, yeah. I know I do deal with the body, specifically our concept of femininity and sort of the expansion of that and the changing of that with the characters and their sort of the assumed gender roles that they'll have, and it manifests in different ways. So there's, they're younger, they're all in sort of this range of adolescence too, that is a sort of a familiar kind of state. And I love the part of your book that you read to Megan about that sort of, what does it mean, this morphing, I think you said the mystery of the banana. So I think I write in a lot of characters that exist in that state of flux in the body of what is assumed to be, what they're told to be, what the body wants to be, versus all of these things. So it's all kind of being compressed. So my first book, Black Jesus and Other Superheroes, it was mostly kind of magic realist kind of manifestations. All of these characters that had sort of really undesirable superpowers or abilities or disabilities, whatever it might be. And this one is way more scientific, so it does kind of go more into kind of like the bone and the genes and all of this kind of thing, and also so a few sort of minor speculative kind of things about what the future would look like based on our trajectory, about how we treat the body now and what is valuable, how we might even end up commodifying the cells of ourselves in these kind of weird ways, but. So yeah, so I think about that. I do think about the physical self and how it relates to the environment and sort of our civilization and kind of the semi-apocalypse that we're in, and how all of this is sort of connecting. So yeah. What about you, Casey? Or I don't know if that answers the question, but I'm just talking.
Megan, do you want to respond, or do you want me to answer?
Oh yeah, I'd love to hear from you. Yes.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, I feel like what I'm very interested in is I am interested in the intimacy that you can get sometimes by reading something and really kind of feel like you've like strapped on somebody else's goggles and you're like walking around in like another person's like being. And there's something like, with writing, there's obviously something like very like mental and emotional about that, but I think there's something really powerful about the physicality of that as well. And I think it's one of those things where I wouldn't. Oh, hi, Lettuce. I know Lettuce probably wants to answer.
That is not your best angle.
I know, right? Listen to Venita. And oh, she's not listening. Okay, all right. I'm sorry, sweetheart. Okay, there we go. And I think like that intimacy that happens sometimes when I read, and all of a sudden I feel like I've literally got somebody else's goggles on. It's like startling, and it's something that I feel like it's rare, and I feel like I'm always kind of chasing that feeling in my fiction writing. So that just, I think, provides me for like a natural mode for writing about body things. And then the fact that so there's that just kind of like one angle. But then there's also the fact that I write mostly about, my characters are mostly transgender women who have all sorts of the wide gamut and range of body issues shit that transgender women tend to have. So I don't know if it's ever really something that I'd consider terribly intentional in my fiction as just sort of like always a backdrop to it. Does that answer your question at all?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I feel like we're just like starting to get into like all of these things, and there's so much to say. There's so many different bodies that we all deal with in our fiction. Like Venita, your collection has like ghosts and Barbie dolls, and there's a turkey, right? Or there's some like pet animal
there's
like
tragedy. Yeah, the turkey. It's very sad.
It is, yeah, very, yeah.
I love that story, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have a friend that told me it's much better if you're on mushrooms, so maybe that like
that. Amazing.
For me, one of the challenges that I have in writing bodies is I just have a really hard time and I wrote about this in a book list I wrote for the Rumpus. Like, I just have a really hard time describing physical attributes of realist characters. I love, fantastic bodies. I can describe so thickly, like the body world in my novel is just like really thickly described. The character Slug in my short story Slug is this giant fantastic slug, and it's like pages of description of Slug. But for whatever reason, I mean, I kind of know what the reasons are, but I just have like a really hard time describing like actual, realist human characters. It just like feels invasive to me or something. And I mean, this is something that feels very similar to when I took figure drawing classes, and I would just like start with the hair and like start with the extremities, and like I was just like really like delaying having to get to like the core of the body. So I'm curious if that's like an issue that you've dealt with in your fiction, or like what are some ways that you kind of push yourself to get at just describing people. Is it like natural to you? Do you struggle with it? Yeah, just throwing that out there.
I think that's a fascinating kind of writer, I don't know, psychosis making that you have. But I love it. And I know I'm always telling I do have the same situation, other sort of thing that I'm fascinated about with the character, and forget that they don't have a shape yet. People can't even see what they look like. And I tell my students all the time, like, oh, I can't visualize this person. I can't visualize this. I'm totally guilty of that kind of thing myself. I don't know if it's because I'm afraid of them, but I think they exist in my mind in this other kind of, I don't know, sort of whatever vibration, versus the way we're trying to translate that into eyes and ears and sounds and all this kind of stuff to sort of make it work. But my favorite descriptions of bodies are the ones that don't look like people. Like I remember some kid, he gave me a description, and it was like her cheeks looked like handlebars or something. I thought it was just great. I was like, of course that doesn't make any sense, but at the same time it's beautiful because like it's that feeling like of youth and something lovely to this boy, and it's manifesting in the way that he's describing this girl. Also, there's like this control thing, like you just move her face around, like I don't know, I don't know. All of these kind of layers are built into that description. I want things like that. So if that's the kind of thing that will excite me about the description of the person. Like, don't give me the usual, hair color, they got eyes or whatever. And like, show me their weird elbows. Give me something that's gonna, strike a note that I wouldn't expect. So I look for that kind of stuff.
Casey, do you have anything to add on this?
Yeah, I think so. I was thinking just like a little bit ago that I don't think there's any character that I've ever written where I can picture what their face looks like. Like that just like never happened. Mm-hmm. And one it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was doing an interview with the Can't Lit podcast. Can't Lit, great podcast, by the way. Dina Del Bucchia, Jen Suk-Fong Lee. If for some reason you happen to be randomly hearing this, if any of your friends happen to hear this, love them. You two gave me a discovery about this. Okay, preamble over. But they said like there's lots of clothes in your fiction. You describe character. The primary way you describe a character's physicality is with clothes. Can't lit, like L-I-T.
Okay.
And I was like, oh goodness. Okay, I think I do. That's like a thing that I hadn't really realized before. And I think that maybe something that gets to answer your question, Megan, is that I'm interested in like where I would say not be able to think about what a character's physicality is, not really have like a picture of that. But if I can like put certain clothes on them, then all of a sudden I do. And I think I'm really interested in when in real life, you can do something like, say, put on a completely different kind of set of clothing, and you sort of literally feel like you have a different body. And like, what does that even mean anyway? Mm-hmm. And come on. And so that, I think, always feels really rich to me and like a way in. And, you know, I think there's a point, there was part of a youthful experience of me was thinking, assuming that those kind of feelings were fake, or those kind of feelings were artifice in a way. And then, you know, realizing, well, like, that doesn't matter. Like, the way that we all the ways we feel about our bodies don't really make sense and are artifice in a certain sense. I mean, like, what makes sense when it comes to like how we actually, like, there's no like truth to how we feel in our skin one way or the other. It's sort of like whether it's real or not is kind of beside the point. And so, and I think I found that a really rich vein to run with, especially like a lot of my characters are dealing with body dysphoria and are dealing with depression and are dealing with substance addiction, which also, you know, changes the literal way that you feel moving around in your body. And I think I'm interested in how that makes up the actual like stuff of our everyday experience walking around in the world, maybe more than we realize, I guess, or more than I realized when I was a silly young thing. Does that answer your question? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no, I was going to say I love the use of fashion as a kind of characterizing tool. I think that's brilliant, a kind of an access point for people.
Yeah, I think for me, I like sort of like stumbled into doing that, but it's like it seemed to work for me every time.
Yeah. Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about kind of joy, finding joy and delight in the body, and how that shows up. And Casey, that scene that you ended with was just like an amazing, you know, example of that. These characters just like finding joy in each other's bodies and like being able to be in their bodies through this encounter. For me, in the body world section of my novel, which we just like got into in what I read from it, for me, that was a way to like give my characters who are really struggling with their relationship to their bodies, give them an opportunity to like get outside of their bodies by being inside this other body. Kind of get outside of like culture and society and everything that's attached to the body by just like being in the space of the body and like kind of recognizing, it sounds so cheesy, but just like the ways in which the body is miraculous and marvelous, and like it has its own logic, it knows things, it has its own agency. So that was one way in which I wanted to bring like, you know, joy and delight around the body in this novel that's really kind of heavy in terms of like how the body is dealt with. There's a lot of like negative there's just like a lot of negative stuff around the body for Margaret, and this is like part of her kind of way out of that. So I'll throw that question to you both, and I'd love to know like some of the ways you think about joy and delight in the body and how you bring that to your fiction.
I just want to say that I love the piece that Casey read. It's so hot and it's so hard to write sexy fiction, right? Mine just goes off the rails, gets totally ridiculous, and I'm like, but that's pretty accurate. but like to actually make it, you know, sensual and, like you said, joyous and sincere, all of that is it was just beautifully done. So I love when it happens and, you know, I can witness that. But for me, like the joy, like my characters are in pain a lot, but they're also kind of, you know, like they're athletic. So, and I write about, you know, sort of femininity and athleticism because I'm more interested in that. I want to sort of see that kind of body in motion. We don't talk about it very much. We also judge the feminine, physical athlete body very harshly. So it's a thing to, you know, and also just our civilization, right? The female body is a thing to control, to minimize, to shrink, to sort of do all of these things to make it fit into something. So even when and then they're saying like, yeah, win this race, but don't look too bulky when you do so. Make sure your hair looks good. All these kind of things, apply to it. So there's this kind of freedom in these women when they're not being looked at, in these younger characters, when they're just doing the thing they love to do, but it's still hard, and they're still struggling. Like one is learning how to do jujitsu and everything else, and she's getting her heart broken while she's trying to learn how to wrestle, and she's practicing with people that don't make any sense, like older women and like weird teenage boys, and she's got to actually tie herself up in all of this, and it's just it's an uncomfortable, weird kind of thing, but she's having a blast. And well, they're having a blast. So there's all, and they're still, trying to figure out their actual nature of their body. So that's probably where the joy is happening most, when they're struggling in something, but they're moving, they're in action. So I like that sort of state.
Yeah, totally. I love that. Mm-hmm.
Megan, it's interesting you bring up that question. I also really love that section you read, the body world section of your book. And I think where I might be about to interpret your book in a way that you do not intend to or you not agree with. So I will just preamble that, and I apologize if that's the case. But I sort of love, there's something I feel about with my characters, and maybe particularly with Gemma, the protagonist of the story that I was reading from, where she's like, it kind of doesn't matter if I hate my body. Like it doesn't really matter whether I hate it or not. It doesn't really matter whether I love it or not. And there is this sort of almost like practicality or utilitarianism almost with, I sometimes went with your body world section, where it's sort of like shifts the thing on its face and is like, well, it doesn't matter if I hate what my body wants or hate what my body does. I also have to literally move from point A to point B. Like I literally have to do that in order to continue with my life. So how am I going to do that? And there's something very like beautiful in that kind of sort of necessity or practicality to it. And I find like so I don't know if I ever, for myself, I don't know if I ever really intentionally put, like sort of set out to have joy or celebration of type things on the page. But I think two things. I think two things maybe we'll just out. One is that like I'm very drawn to characters who are hurting their bodies and characters who feel terrible in their bodies, and a lot of sort of bleaker sides of those things. And I'm like, well, that reality, to try to tell that reality without pretending that there's 0% joy, even with people who are having a really hard time, like that just to me just doesn't feel accurate. That just, you know what I mean? Like that doesn't there's something that always feels very flat when I read fiction, where it's just like, this is just like here where things are bad and they stay bad. Even if that can be like the experience for the majority of a person's time. I mean, I'm always interested, like I feel like there are always contrasts to look for, and joy would be one of them. And then second is a little more like nuts and bolty maybe, but I feel like, I don't know, I had a music teacher once, please bear with me. I had a music teacher once who was like, if you start out loud and if you start out like playing really loudly, then you have nowhere to go. And I think about that a lot in terms of fiction, where it's like, okay, so like if I start out with this character having these feelings or these experiences, and they just kind of like, and if they start out having these really intense ones, they keep going this way and they don't vary at all, like the story has nowhere to go. The story has no dynamics to them in the literal musical sense. So I think that's what arises, that's what ends up with me, Ava and Gemma having sex against a skyscraper window. Is my long answer to your question.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that story so much.
That's kind. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for, yeah, I totally, I agree with that interpretation of that section of my book. I think I think you're right. Yeah, it's just sort of like there's not really a particular positive or negative valence to what happens in the body in that world, and that's what the characters are sort of learning.
Yeah, I kind of love how it gives Margaret a like. It doesn't like. It sort of just doesn't matter what you're like. It kind of like gives her this like escape hatch. Like it doesn't really matter how you feel. That's not going to. That's that is like officially no longer relevant. So what are you going to do then?
Yeah. Thank you.
I like that comparison though to like that musical, that high note or that loud note or whatever it is. And it does matter, sort of like, is this your loudest note? Because if you can't change this, if you can't make it better, I mean, so it could be somebody else's sort of middle ground, but if it's the most intense that you could possibly be, yeah, you don't do that. Save that for your later. I like that a lot.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. It's like it's something like my high school, like I had a high school music teacher who just like mentioned it offhand once, and it just like stayed with me in my writing, like that's ever since.
There's a question for you, maybe. Chat.
Oh yes. Oh, thank you, Theodora. And then there's thanks Lisa for this comment for Venita's observations about female athletes. So interesting to observe all the bodies, how the commentators speak about them, and a kind of affirmation I feel from seeing the spectators world watching with apparent delight at these amazing bodies hooping in the WNBA. Yeah. Do you have any responses to that, Venita?
I love the WNBA. I don't have normal cable, so I can't keep up with anything, but I do love watching women's basketball. And it is irritating to sort of hear the commentators sometimes and how they do get derailed from some of the focus. But then there's also this really tenderness too that they have about the players. And it's cool sometimes when it's all aligned and it's sort of in this kind of weird theater of sports and things. But yeah, they are amazing. These women, all muscle. I'm really tall myself. I'm 5'11", almost 6 feet. So a lot of them are same height as me, but outweigh me by 50 pounds of muscle. It's just crazy. So like it's just all impressive. Like all these things I can't do. So yeah, it is a powerful thing, and I think we're getting closer to being able to celebrate that kind of body and that kind of talent without deriding it for arbitrary, ancient, pitiful reasons that have to do with men, the patriarchy, effing patriarchy. But yeah.
And to answer Theodora's question, asking if I did certain anatomy research. Oops, I didn't need to do that. Yes, I have this book. Oops. It's like within reach at all times. The human body.
Oh my goodness gracious.
I've had this for like 20 years and it's probably very outdated. I'm sure there's like, updated anatomical research.
I don't think we've changed much.
Yeah, right?
Well, I don't know. There's so much we don't know, I feel like. But yeah, so I frequently consult this when I'm working on body stuff. And I have one last question that I'm curious, what your responses are. And then if any, it sounds like we don't have other questions, but feel free to continue asking questions, audience, if you have them. But what happens to the body when you write, like in the act of writing? Where is the body for you?
When you say where is the body, what do you mean?
Like, how do you experience your own body, in the process of writing?
I'm very cerebral by nature. So I do have that kind of weird professor sort of habit where your body is just a thing to carry around your eyes and your mouth from meeting to meeting. Like you kind of just forget about it and like ignore it completely. So I'm working on that, being very present, and so that's like one of my things that I have to sort of be very active about, is staying in my body, being present and cognizant of everything, and not just sort of, even like for this conversation, I will sit in the same position. My hands move a lot, so I'm very active there, but my legs will just be in, same position all the time for an hour and not even worry about it. And all of a sudden I stand up, I'm going to fall down because I haven't even considered the fact that I should probably move something else. So yeah, I can be very disconnected and just sort of get locked in my head and sort of lose track of things. So I do work on trying to be mindful of the total self. But yeah, when I'm writing, I'm gone. I am in that world, just sitting there, just sweating in a room as the lights, come on and off around me and that kind of thing. But yeah.
My legs have been in the same position the entire time this whole event.
I'm stretching mine right now in response to this conversation.
Let's change it up.
Yeah, I find too, I don't I cannot recall sort of like feeling it in my body at all ever when I'm writing. It's not really something that happens. And I think like it's funny, I even think like I often one thing that is true for me is that I don't do very well like writing in the house, like a desk or a couch where I spend most of my time. Like writing in those kind of environments is difficult for me. So I often go outside in more public or third spaces, but even still then, I think like it's very common for me, for example, to go say to like a cafe and get some food, and then I like start writing, and then and I always forget that whatever I ordered is actually there. So yeah, I don't know if I'm ever. I'm sorry. I'm clearly figuring this out in real time, by the way. So thank you for bearing with me. But like, I don't think that even though like being out in the world and being sort of in a non-private space has always been a part of writing for me, I don't think that necessarily feeling in my body at all is part of that, which is something I'm going to have to think about. Thank you for making me aware.
Okay, yeah.
What about you, Megan?
It looks like we have another question. Not to dodge this or anything. More questions. Great, thank you. Yeah, I feel like I'm always either the body has like just receded from my awareness, or I'm like acutely aware of it. Like, I'm usually drinking lots of coffee and drinking. Oops, I keep pressing the wrong buttons here. Or drinking lots of water, and then surprise, I have to use the bathroom. And yeah, so like those pauses, and then I need to refill my water glass. So like the bodily needs provide like nice pauses in my writing flow. Okay, if you have an audiobook of your work, does it feel like another human body, the reader, is a medium for your work? Oh, very interesting question. We need to wrap up here in a few minutes, but I think we can spend a little bit of time with these questions. Do you two have responses to this? If you have an audio book of your work, does it feel like another human body, the reader, is a medium for your work?
I do have an audio book. I haven't heard the whole thing yet. I feel like I'm just waiting for someone to send it to me. I might have to buy my own audiobook. But yeah, send me a file, people. And but and they hired 5 different actors to do different voices for the stories, and so many different kind of people. So it's a cool experience, but it is so different hearing another interpretation of what you had in your mind, and both are not wrong or right or anything. Once it leaves you, it becomes art becomes its own thing that has to sort of take on its life without the creator. I get that, but it is a weird experience. And also for having sort of odd structures for my stories, like how do you even read some of these things? I had no idea. sort of what some of them would how they're going to sort of order certain things and with the actors. But that's kind of fun to sort of let it take on its own shape outside of me. I think some people are very precious about things. I'm not that precious. I'm like, yeah, I did it, whatever. But but yeah, it's interesting.
And last question, did you have something to say, Casey, on that?
I was going to say, Venita, I'm completely with you on that. I am always just like, oh, like you you reading it that way? That's so interesting. I never would have thought about that. Like, how cool! Like, go for it. It's not mine anymore. Like, I published it. Like, I had my chance. You know. I feel similarly, and I have an audiobook that I didn't read for my novel, and that's how I felt about it. It'll also say I'm about to do the audiobook for this book, and I'm about to do it myself, and I'm like kind of terrified about it.
I just did that, and it was really challenging. I learned a lot, yeah. But yeah, I'd love to talk. I talked with Jean Thornton about this too, and she gave me some tips. Okay, last question, and thanks everyone for these great questions from Adriana. When you invent fictional characters, at what point do their bodies come into play? How do you go about creating bodies for your characters? Yeah, that is like the question for me that I struggle with.
For me, bodies come in, they're very secondary. So the first thing is the voice. I have to hear the character. So they have to have a speech pattern, and that has to reflect some kind of psychology or going on, something about their character, and then connect to the world around them. So they're all just voices and sounds before they even start to take shape and have some sort of physical structure that has to be moved around. And that is a very important stage for sure, but it's not the building block for me. They have to have some kind of rhythm in the voice that's interesting to me before anything else. So yeah.
Yeah, the bodies often do not come first for me when I'm kind of structuring them. They're usually about feelings and emotions that are like something about them in that way is what makes them sort of like start getting conjured for me. I think what I'm most interested in maybe is when parts of my characters' bodies reveal themselves to me in this way that I didn't like you ever like, you know, you have like maybe like a friend that you've known for years and all of a sudden you're like, you have freckles, and your friend's like, I've had them the whole time. Like, what? Thanks, buddy. And you're like, yeah, I never noticed them before. That's the kind of stuff I feel very like compelling or interested in when I consider them with my characters, and I'll be like, oh, they've got this. Dang. That's when that I think is the answer to that question that always feels like that is the part of the process that feels like freshest to me.
I think that's hilarious. Like some friends are like that. Like you don't even know what I look like.
Right?
Or they compliment like a shirt like 8 times. Like you've seen this shirt all the time. It's not brand new. What's going on? Do you even who are you? Who am I? Who are we to each other?
Right. Have we actually met before?
Right?
What am I missing something about you? No. Like, wait, what?
Yeah, it's like, and I'm like the opposite. I'm so observant. Like I'm always sort of studying people and looking deeply all the time. And I might not look at their, certain clothes or whatever, but I know faces pretty well. Once a person becomes interesting enough, like, yeah, I'm going to look at you. And so it's funny running into people like that.
Well, I think this is a good time to wrap up. So ER, if you'll rejoin us, that would be great. Thanks so much, everyone, for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all in touch. Thank you all for also having a wonderful chat.
Yeah, this is a great
that has been excellent.
I'm trying to come back.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you, ER, wherever ER is. And thanks all the chat.
There is ER.
I'm trying to come back and join you. My camera is just being very slow for some reason. So I'll start talking and then maybe my camera will. There we go. Okay. thank y'all so much. This was great. And I think folks got a lot of even tips, writerly tips. So that's always great too. I want to encourage folks, if you click this teal button at the bottom of your screen, that takes you not just to the 3 books that these authors read from tonight, but also their backlist and pre-orders. So if you already own these books, great. Go buy their backlist. Go check out their backlist and get it from the library. Encourage, your friends or your public library to buy these books and carry them. It's really important that we get trans and queer authors in our public libraries and in our school libraries. So it really does help when you request them. As digital copies as well, if those are available. It's all good, and your local libraries want to hear from patrons. So please check out this link, and of course it does help us when you buy them from Charis. So I will be adding captions to this and putting it up on our YouTube channel in the next couple days. We'd love for you to share that link when it comes out. And of course, we'd love for you to visit with us again at Charis sometime soon, virtually, or stop by the store and shop in person with us. We've got a great rest of October coming up, so check out our full list of events at charisbooksandmore.com. But until next time, thank you all so much. We're really, really grateful to you for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much, ER and Charis.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you.